Sup guys, it's Alex here, and freaking Wednesday night, my Kentucky Wildcats got beaten at the buzzer by South Carolina. That was so painful for me to watch. Not only did we lose on a buzzer beater to where we just played awful defense on that last play to South Carolina on the road to a team who was 8-7, but we were up by 10 with 10 minutes to go. It's a game we shouldn't have lost, but we ended up losing, and as you can see, we dropped from a 4 seed to a 6 seed. So I just wanted to go ahead and throw that in there, let you guys know how I'm feeling about that, because I'm sure I'll get roasted in the comments for being a UK fan after that and for the season as a whole, really. But we are back with another Bracketology update. This one is for January 17th, as you can see up there, and from the title of this video too. I am now starting my career at my job, so now I'm going to be working really late on basically every weeknight and sometimes on Saturdays too. So you can expect Bracketologies to still come out on Tuesdays and Fridays, but they are going to be at like 8 o'clock. I know 8 o'clock probably around that time on Tuesdays, and about 6:30, 7 o'clock, somewhere around there on Fridays. I'm making this at like 6:21 right now, so they're going to be a little bit later. Can't really make them while I'm working, so yeah, just throwing it out there. But without any further ado, let's just kind of go ahead and look through the bracket, kind of note some new teams that are new to the field, some changes amongst the different regions and teams. Up here in the South Regional, we got Manhattan, who's new to the field. The impressive Rutgers this season, they are up to an 8 seed. St. Mary's is up to a 9. Wichita State remains a 5. Minnesota and NC State are the playing game. Villanova is up to a 4, and Mexico State moved down to a 13. Then Oklahoma and Georgetown are the other two teams from the playing games or whatever. South Dakota State's up to a 14. Stanford is continuing their really good run recently. They're up to a 7. Michigan State's up to a 2. Kansas is now a 1 seed. They took over after Butler ended up losing to, I want to say, it was Seton Hall. They were at home. Seton Hall ended up beating them by like 8 or 9, something like that. Seton Hall was pretty impressive there. But then we have Georgia State moving up to a 13. Wisconsin up to a 6. They've been actually doing pretty good recently. I've been kind of surprised by that. Ever since they blew out Tennessee, they've just been killing it. Then Auburn is down to a 3. Colgate's down to a 14. Arizona is down to a 7. BYU down to a 10. And Butler down to a 2. As I mentioned earlier, they lost to Seton Hall. A lot of downward movement there. But up here in the West Regional, we have Penn State down to an 8. I know a couple, for the last few Bracketologies, I've been pretty high on them. They even made it up to like a 4 or a 5 seed. They might have touched 3. I don't know about that. But now they are down to an 8. They've lost like 3 or 4 in a row. I've kind of been souring on them a little bit because they've been losing so much. But, you never know. Maybe they were just overachieving. Then we have Texas Tech up to a 9. Stephen F. Austin new to the field as a 13. Kentucky, as I mentioned earlier, we are down to a 6. Virginia Tech is new to the field as an 11. UC Irvine is new to the field as a 14. Montana's down to a 15. Indiana's down to a 9. Michigan's up to a 5. East Tennessee State is new to the field as a 12. Iowa is up to a 6. More on that matchup later. Wright State down to a 14. Creighton down to a 7. Houston down to a 10. And Winthrop down to a 15. Man, Joe Lunardi and these teams are just not doing too well here at the bottom of the bracket. But I'll go ahead and show you guys look at the bubble. Last 4 byes. Purdue, who's actually doing pretty good. St. Mary's, Florida, and Virginia Tech. Last 4 in those playing games were Oklahoma, Minnesota, Georgetown, NC State. First 4 out are Xavier, the defending national champions in Virginia. They have just been stinking it up recently. I think they were able to close out a win this past week. Don't quote me on that, but they've just not been doing good at all. VCU is also in first 4 out, same with USC. And the next 4 out are Washington, Texas, Oregon State, and Georgia. And so without any further ado, let's go and get into my picks for the 2020 NCAA men's basketball championship, or whatever you want to call it. It's my little bracketology thing that I do with, since Bracketify got shut down, I'll be doing this Excel bracket. I'll also be giving away an NCAA tournament ticket before the tournament actually ends up starting, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. I'll be posting more videos around the beginning of February about that. I'm going to be giving away a ticket if we can get above 5,000 subscribers by the time the tournament starts. Right now, we're right on the edge of 4,000. I think we're like 5 or 6 subscribers away, so hopefully we can get there, and hopefully another 1,000 in the next couple months. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this video. Up first, we have Baylor and Manhattan. That one would be pretty easy. We got Baylor winning that one. Rutgers and St. Mary's, we got to go with Rutgers there, even though St. Mary's has some pretty good players. I think his name is like Jack Ford or something. I like Rutgers to make their first tournament since like 2005, and I think it's their first tournament since like 1991 and first season with them winning records since 2005, but I'm kind of getting off track. Then I think Wichita State, I know they did just end up losing. I can't remember who it was to this past week. But then I think they'll beat the winner of Minnesota and NC State, which I think would be Minnesota. We got Villanova beating New Mexico State. Arkansas beating the winner of Oklahoma and Georgetown, which I think would be Georgetown. Then we have Florida State beating South Dakota State. I'm going to go with Stanford continuing their big run against Florida. I know I had Florida moving on and upsetting West Virginia in the last bracketology, moved on to like the Sweet 16. But I don't like that matchup there with Stanford. I think Stanford will be able to get the job done. They've beaten some good teams this year. Michigan State will beat Charlotte. And then as I did the last bracketology and maybe another one before that, I'll just be kind of going region by region for now. When the actual tournament comes around, I'll just switch it up and go like first round as I've been doing at the beginning of the season. But it's just easier with this Excel document to just kind of go region by region. I think it's a better visual. Then we got Baylor. I think they'll be able to beat Rutgers. Wichita State, I think, would beat Villanova in a 5-4. Florida State, I think, would beat Arkansas, though there's a huge game this weekend when Kentucky comes to town against Arkansas. That'll be a good test for Arkansas, and I mean, at this point, it's probably a good test for Kentucky, too. Then I think that Michigan State will beat Stanford. Baylor, I think, would beat Wichita State. If I can pick Baylor right there, there we go. Florida State, I'm actually going to pick to beat Michigan State. Michigan State had just gotten popped by Purdue this past weekend by 29. Florida State's going on a pretty good run. I know they were like on the edge of the tournament at like the beginning of the season, but now they're up to a 3 seed and have been killing it recently, especially with the ACC with both Duke and Louisville losing this past week. It's going to be a great opportunity for Florida State to step in. Then I'm actually going to go with Baylor winning that region. I know Florida State, as I just mentioned, I really like them, but I really like Baylor too. I think they should be the #1 team in the nation right now. They've been playing really good and have the best resume out of anybody. So up here in the top right regional, we got to go with Gonzaga beating the winner of Grambling and Norfolk State. I'm going to go with Chris Beard and Texas Tech. Moving on past Penn State, Texas Tech beat Louisville earlier this season, and I mean they made it to the national championship game last year, so they know how to win in the tournament. Then Colorado, I think, would beat Duquesne. Duquesne was one of the last teams remaining last undefeated teams remaining this season, but I think they ended up losing to Colorado right there. Maryland, I think, will beat Stephen F. Austin, though Stephen F. Austin did beat Duke at Duke earlier this season, so I mean that could be a nice upset pick. Then I think I'm going to go with Kentucky here. Moving on past Virginia Tech. Oregon, I think, would beat UC Irvine. Then I'm going to go with Purdue in a 10-7 upset, kind of a mini upset there, but I really don't like Memphis without James Wiseman. They've been kind of falling off the map a little bit recently. I know they did just beat, I want to say they beat Cincinnati last night, and they came back from 14 against South Florida, but they're just not the same team without them. Then San Diego State, I think, would beat Montana, obviously. Gonzaga, I think, would beat Texas Tech. Texas Tech just doesn't have enough talent after Jarrett Culver left last season. Then I think that Maryland with Anthony Cohen's going to move on there past Colorado. As much as I want to pick Kentucky here, I know these two teams, I think, were matched up in a different bracket too, or in the same regional last time, but I got to go with Oregon. I know Oregon did just lose last night to Washington State, which was a pretty bad loss in and of itself, but I think they're a better team than Kentucky at this point, especially with Peyton Pritchard playing so well. Now I'm going to go with San Diego State beating Purdue. Gonzaga, I think, would beat Maryland as much as I want Maryland to win that game. Oregon, I think, would be able to beat San Diego State there. I know San Diego State's the last team remaining in the nation without a loss, and I may be disrespecting them here, but they just haven't played the quality of opponents that Oregon has, and I think they get the victory there. But then as much as I want to pick Oregon moving on to the Final Four, they did just end up losing to Washington State, so I got to go with Gonzaga there. They're the #1 team in the nation in the AP polls. I think they get the victory there. So then we'll go down here to the bottom right regional. Duke and the winner of Albany and Robert Morris. I mean, that one's going to be pretty obvious. Duke's going to end up winning. LSU, I think, is actually a pretty decent team with Will Wade at the helm. I think they get the victory there over Indiana. Michigan, I'm going to have losing to East Tennessee State. 12-5 there. I know that's one of the most popular spots to pick an upset, but I think that East Tennessee State's really good. They're playing in the Southern Conference, which could produce an at-large team if one of the best teams in that league. I think it's like East Tennessee State, Wofford, and Furman. They're all pretty good this season. I like East Tennessee State moving on past Michigan, and a surprise upset pick there. And Miles Powell and Seton Hall will beat William and Mary. Iowa and Northern Iowa are facing off here, a battle of the two Iowa schools. I think that there's tons of people who go to Northern Iowa that are actually Iowa fans, so that'd be pretty cool to see. I think that Iowa would end up winning that one, though Northern Iowa has been known to pull off some upsets in the NCAA tournament. And Dayton would beat Wright State. Creighton, I think, would beat Houston, and West Virginia would beat Winthrop. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we got Duke versus LSU. Duke's going to end up winning that one. I know they did just end up losing to Clemson, but, I mean, they're still the better team there. Then Miles Powell and Seton Hall will move on past East Tennessee State. Dayton with Obi Toppin will beat Iowa. And then West Virginia, I think, will beat Creighton. Then over here, I'll almost switch over to the left regional. we have Duke beating Seton Hall. I think Vernon Carey and just that entire team, they have way more depth, and I'm sure Krzyzewski's going to focus on shutting down Miles Powell. I think they get the job done there. Then Dayton, I think, would beat West Virginia. Then I'm going to go with the huge upset pick right here, and I'm going to go with Dayton. Dayton's a 3 seed, so I don't know if that'd really be considered an upset. But the magnitude and national recognition of these two teams, I think it's a pretty significant upset. I'm going to go with Obi Toppin and Dayton upsetting Duke and moving on to the Final Four in that regional. So then up next we have Kansas versus Princeton. That one's pretty obvious. Kansas is going to win that one. Marquette and Illinois. Illinois has been a really impressive team, but I think they're going to run into the buzzsaw. It is Marcus Howard, and Marquette's going to win that one. Ohio State is reeling, and that's why I'm picking Akron to upset them. 12/5. I know I had both Ohio State and Michigan losing in 12/5 upsets, which is pretty funny. Louisville, I think, would beat Georgia State. I'm going to go with another upset pick right here with Liberty. You guys know, if you've been watching my bracketologies, that I really like Liberty this season. I think they're one of the best mid-majors, if not the best mid-major in the nation. I think they get the upset victory there. Auburn lost their first game of the season to Alabama. I still think they're a pretty good team. They'll end up winning that game against Colgate. Arizona will beat BYU, and then Butler will beat the John Morant-less Murray State. Then we'll have Marquette upsetting Kansas, another number 1 seed going down. This one's going to be really early. Kansas has been known to kind of go quiet for stretches this season, though they do have some quality wins this season, especially against West Virginia. But I think that they'll lose to Marcus Howard. I think he gets hot here and moves them on as an 8 seed to the Sweet 16. Louisville, I think, will beat Akron. Almost said lose to Akron. Then I'm going to go with another upset pick here with Liberty moving on past Auburn to the Sweet 16 as an 11 seed, and then Butler beating Arizona. Then for a spot in the Elite 8, I think Louisville will beat Marquette. And then I think that Butler will end up beating Liberty. Liberty's run is going to kind of come to an end there. They may be the new Butler, though, when Butler was really good as a mid-major and moved on to a power conference. And I think that Liberty could end up having the same fate, maybe eventually. They're still a pretty small school right now, but I mean, Butler was way back when, too. I think Butler's going to win. And I think that Butler is going to make the Final Four as well, beating Louisville. Louisville just hasn't been seeming to connect this season. I think Louisville's a more talented team, but Butler's playing more as a team, and they have a really good history right there, and they've only lost a couple times this season. I'm going to go with Butler winning that one, which sets up a Final Four between Baylor and Butler. I'm going to go with Baylor. These two teams have been kind of switching spots on the 1 and 2 line for the past month or so, but Baylor's been really impressive this season. Then I'm going to go with Dayton with Obi Toppin pulling off another upset here. Who would have thought at the beginning of the season I would have Baylor and Dayton playing in the national championship game? That's pretty cool for me to see. And I'm going to have Baylor end up winning this one. I know it's pretty cheesy having the number 1 overall seed win, but I think that Baylor is playing the best basketball right now, and I think they can continue it into the NCAA tournament. So let me know what you guys thought of this bracket. I tried to filter in as many possible upset picks as I could. I know I've been kind of going with chalk recently, but I thought this would be really cool to see. Plus, a lot of the top teams have been losing. And this college basketball season as a whole has been pretty crazy, so it'd be pretty plausible to have a crazy NCAA tournament. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did. So make sure you're subscribed for the NCAA tournament ticket giveaway. Let me know your thoughts and comments and your own predictions in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.